With all the marketing noise centered around cloud and virtualization and communication networks, there are times when a dedicated appliance still makes the most sense. But why, when, and how do you build a dedicated appliance? All topics we'll discuss today in FreeSBC How-To Series webinar. And we welcome you to this, the third of the FreeSBC webinar series. A quick look back. This series started with an introductory session where we describe the capabilities and services included in FreeSBC along with its unique business model. If you missed it, a recording of that session is available on freesbc.com in the video library. In this session, we'll continue the how-to series focusing on the installation and activation of software on a bare metal server, essentially creating an SBC appliance. So some introductions to get started. I'm Alan Percy, Senior Director of Product Marketing for Telco Bridges and today's event moderator. I'm responsible for driving awareness of the session border controller solutions from Telco Bridges. And I probably should mention I'm also a bit of a computer history buff, and you may find a few pictures from the past tucked away in today's presentation. Hope you find them interesting. Joining us again is Luke Morissette. He's the Director of Customer Support and one of the founders of Telco Bridges. And Luke, thanks again for volunteering your time and being part of today's event.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Yep. And we're glad to have your attendees with us and encourage you to use this opportunity to interact with our speakers and pose your questions and comments. We always love hearing from you. So let's move on to our agenda and what do we have planned for this session. So first of all, we're going to address why build an SBC based on a bare metal server. We'll dive into what's required to build a bare metal server. We'll get into the software download, installation, and activation process, and we'll step you through that. It's basically a 7-step process, and we'll walk you through each one of those 7 steps. We'll wrap up today's session with some information on getting help, including talking about a recorded session that we've created that goes soup to nuts, shows you every single step in great detail. And then we'll talk about what's coming next in our webinar. And of course, we'll answer your questions and towards the end of today's session. So let's just start out, Luke, with a little discussion about why bare metal. Like, well, why, we talked in the last session about building a virtualized VMware-based session border controller, and I'm sure this is in everyone's mind. Why would someone build an SBC on bare metal?
Yeah, so there's some advantages, of course, of building virtual machines, but having a dedicated server for SBC functionality can give you maximum performance to protect your network. Right? There is no interference from other services running on other virtual machines. Right? Also, we can reach highest densities of the SBC, which is 60,000 sessions, and to reach those capacities, we need to be on a bare metal servers. And the other thing is, even if we want just a smaller SBC, which is, I don't know, 500, 1,000, or a few thousand sessions, we can get a very low cost appliance to run this SBC software, right?
Yeah, so that totally makes sense. Yeah, we forget sometimes that there's another end of the market, which is that low density, cost-effective solution. So that's kind of interesting.
Yep.
And we put in here also too, avoids the noisy neighbor issue. Just real quick, explain maybe what a noisy neighbor is, especially in a virtualized environment.
So that is, each of these virtual machines fight for resources on the system, right? So when we configure a FreeSBC on a virtual machine, we try to make it, give it some dedicated CPU, dedicated memory access, dedicated network cards. But there's always a chance where other services would take up some of the resources of that server. And then the SBC doesn't have necessarily all the resources to function perfectly.
Right. Yeah, and I think also too, I think sometimes people forget that the virtualization software is kind of a tax. It does consume some resources.
Yes, it's somewhere around 5 to 10% usage, right?
Right.
Wasted. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. What's required to build a bare metal server? And there's a couple special requirements here.
Yeah, that's right. So we sort of distributed this in different sizes of SBC to give an idea of what is needed. So as you see there's more CPU required for larger SBCs. You need like for 15,000, even 20,000 sessions, you need at least 10 gigabit per second network interfaces to be able to carry all this RTP traffic, SIP and RTP traffic through the networks.
Mm-hmm.
You need the network interface card. One is for management of the SBC, and you need at least one for running SBC traffic. Sometimes you have other interfaces to increase the capacity of SIP and RTP traffic. And you can also have a network connection for controlling the bare metal server itself.
Mm-hmm. And there was something special about that one of the network cards.
Yes, one of the network card needs to be in the list of supported network interface cards. So that is on our TB wiki. We have the list, and it needs to be in one of those supported. So sometimes bare metal servers that you buy off the shelf will not have the specified network interfaces. So maybe you need to add the network interface card in that server.
Got it. Got it. And of course, keyboard, monitor, USB stick, or DVD for the installation.
Yes. So USB and DVD will be used for installing the ISO image.
Got it. So now we've got everything we need to get started. Let's take a trip into your lab. Looks like some guys in white shirts in your lab, but maybe. Anyway, we'll move on. A little bit of humor there. Anyway, so let's start talking about the registration and download of the ISO image. What's the process there?
Yep. So you need to go on the FreeSBC website. Somewhere in that page, you have download FreeSBC. You can choose with or without support. And then you will enter some information that you see here, right? Your name, company, and the email where we will send you this license. And once that is done, you will be able here to get the ISO image.
And that basically it's a download. Do you know roughly how big that download is? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I think it's around 4 gigabyte or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty big.
So yeah, certainly worth doing on a wired connection.
Yeah, because this installs all the operating system plus the FreeSBC software, right? So
Right.
it's a full image with everything.
Right, right. And I know one of the questions that pops up, we see occasionally people, they go to the FreeSBC website and they're thinking, okay, well, I need to have a credit card and et cetera. And it's like, no, they don't. Actually, you go to the FreeSBC sites, click on the download option, fill this form out, hit submit, and it literally starts downloading right away. And that software that's downloaded is the free version with a 90-day free license for the analytics and the APIs and some of the other enhanced features. So you get it all right from the get-go. And of course, then we follow up later to offer you a service plan. So you can get started pretty quickly. So let's move on to the next step, which is now you've got this this downloaded image. We need to create a bootable USB memory stick.
That's right. So there are different methods to do this. One that we propose is Rufus. It's a free software available on the internet, so you can download. We have the link on our wiki for downloading this application. So you start it, and then you insert a free USB key, right, or stick in your USB port, and needs to be big enough to hold this file, right? So like I said, around 4 gigabyte. Here we see the example. The device is 32 gigabyte USB stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing you need to do in this page actually is on the bottom you see here, create a bootable disk using ISO image. So you choose their ISO image, and the button on the right will browse for the file. So you just have to browse for the right ISO image and click on start. It will create this image on your USB stick. You can do a similar thing on a DVD drive. So.
Got it. Good. Okay, so now we got a bootable USB. The next step is to move on and actually boot off of it. And the first step of that, usually, you have to do something with the BIOS here.
That's right. So you start up your server. Here I have a keyboard and monitor. There's other ways to do that, but that's the simplest, I would guess. And then you stop the boot up with, I think it's F12 or F2 on this server. And then you get into the boot sequence and you choose the USB drive as a boot sequence.
Got it. And as we discussed earlier, if you don't know how to do this, we're in trouble. But anyway, so let's move on. So now what we're going to do is, so we got the USB stick ready to go. We've reprogrammed the BIOS to boot from the USB stick, and now we're going to power up the server with a USB stick installed. And you know, we just popped this picture in here to show what the back of a server with a USB stick stuck in it is. I'm sure everyone knows their way around USB right. ports by now.
Good.
All right, and then the boot process starts, and the boot process takes about how long?
Well, it depends on the server, right? But for me here, I think it was 3 or 4 minutes before I could initiate the installation.
Right, right. So then the next step is a screen will pop up, and we're going to initiate the installation and disk formatting, and that's this is a screen scrape I got from our lab session.
Yep, that's right. So you can choose the first option there, reformat disk to install the software. Of course, it will wipe out all the disk on the server, but it will have the operating system and the FreeSBC installed after that.
Okay. And so then the installation proceeds, and if I remember correctly from when we did the demonstration, it goes for a few more minutes, and that's actually the timestamp on the bottom right from when we actually started. We're 7 minutes in before we got to this. And then it goes, eventually presents you with a login to get the, to help you get the IP address. And I think here's the login screen.
Yes, exactly. So you can log in here. The password used to be root, but we changed that recently, and you need to ask us for this this password, right? It's a, like, let's say, in between process between getting this system up and having the web interface access. If you know the IP address, you don't need to log in here. However, if you don't know, then you can log in here and do the command IP space A. You will get the management IP. Here in my case, it was 192.168.101.31. And then you can log in the web interface with that IP.
Right. And again, this took us about 18 minutes to get to this point. So this is, you know, based on this particular server, it took a little while to get to the screen.
Yes.
Okay, so then the final step, step 7, is to move to the move to your web browser and access the web portal and do the initial configuration wizard.
Yep, that's right. So we get to that that page. We add the port 12358. You see it at the top of the screen, and then you type on continue from this page, and you will be asked some questions on initial configuration of the system.
Right.
We did these steps in the VMware installation process, and you can find it in our video that we did for the bare metal installation.
Right. Right. So as Luke notes, so we did this it's the exact same process that we did in the VMware install.
Yes.
And we also, in our demonstration, recorded the process in detail. So this is where I wanted to give you a reference to the end-to-end demonstration video that we put together. It takes, it's about 25 minutes long, this video, and we step through this process live. From one step to the other. We shortened out some of the, clipped out some of the video for, while we're waiting for the boots and waiting for the
Yes.
resets, et cetera, et cetera. But it basically walks you through the process of viewing and installing and going through the wizard. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to quick show you where this library is on the screen here. So just give me 1 second here, grab the URL. Do is grab the browser window and bring it over here. So here's a FreeSBC video library. If you go to that link that we provided, it'll ask you to just quick fork over your email address so we know who you are, and then you go into the video library and you'll see all kinds of great resources, including the introductory webinar that we talked about, how to do the install on VMware, and here's the session we were talking about here, how to install FreeSBC in a bare metal server. Again, you know, the whole process we've just talked about, including stepping through the wizard, is all part of that video. So hopefully that should give you some insight as to how to go through the process. Okay. So let's move on and talk about some other additional resources. So we've got a handful of things. One, we talked about the video library already, and you can get to it from freesbc.com or the link I just provided. Also, to the wiki, and the wiki can be reached at docs.telcobridges.com. And this is where we do all the documentation for the product, all the you know, technical materials, installation instructions, many of the compatibility guides. We talked about the LAN network card specifications, the details on the scaling and sizing of the servers, etc., is all tucked away in there. Another great resource is, of course, the forums, and this is where you, as a participant in this FreeSBC experience, can not only find information from our technical team, but also share information from your work. And this is you know, user-generated content on the forums.freesbc.com. And we also posted in there the FAQ from the previous webinars. And you can find that on this main page here in the FAQ section, which is a great resource. We've had, what's the 47 questions we've piled in there already, and also expecting some from today. So we've covered a lot of material today and summarized it for you. We've now, this is again wrapping up the third session with a bare metal installation. We've got more to come and more planned. We're going to move on to session 4 next month, talking about the initial IP or SIP configuration, go through some of the detailed screens and some of the options available for SIP configuration, explaining what they all mean and what some of the interdependencies. After that, we'll get into some of the advanced call routing techniques, you know, the starting from the default call routes to more advanced techniques, including using third-party external call routing engines. Moving then on to the analytics and advanced troubleshooting. This is where, you know, TB analytics and the other tools that come with that, we'll be able to dig into those in more detail. And somewhere along in here, we'll also set up a session to talk about activation on AWS. That's just about ready for customers to start to work with it, and it should be ready fairly soon. And we may rearrange things based on when that becomes available. So there's lots more to come. And obviously, we'd love to hear if you've got some suggestions for topics on the session. Now would be the time to, you know, shoot me a note, and we'll add them to the docket. So where to get more help? This is Luke's team manages 3 tech support centers around the globe. Certainly his team in Montreal, him and Nicole managing the lines in Montreal.
Yes. And
we've got an office in Turkey that provides support in the European time zone, and resource in Hong Kong for those in the APAC region. So we've accomplished quite a bit today. We tried to keep today's session tight and quick so we could leave some more time for your questions, but congratulations, you did it. Looking forward to when you make your first call into FreeSBC, and looking forward to an opportunity for you to you know, share what you've done and your accomplishments with that. We've got a couple other things before we wrap up here. One of them is we've got a few industry events coming. We'll be at ITW May 6th through 9th. Myself and Mark will be at the event, sharing what we've been doing with FreeSBC and sharing with some of our partners some stories about how FreeSBC fits into carrier solutions. We'll also be participating in ComCon in the UK in June, and then later this year we'll be participating in Astracon in October in Orlando. So a couple different opportunities to get some FaceTime if you're interested, and an opportunity to go from there. So, all right, so let's get to some questions and answers here. So it looks like we got a couple of questions here. So a question here about the root password. How do we get that root password? What's the process to get that?
Yeah, so when you download initially the license and the ISO, we will have some information that comes to us, right? So we know that you have downloaded this license. However, it's probably better if you send an email to support@telcobridges.com, and you say, I've just downloaded an image, and please give us the root password, and we verify if you are a customer of us, right? And then we can send you this password. We don't want to send this password out on the wiki and everywhere, right? And this password can be changed quickly, but we decided to change it from root to root something else, because there's just a little gap when you install the bare metal server. If you have your management interface on the public network, that you could be attacked. So we decided to put a password there that the system cannot be accessed at all until you have changed the password to something that is much more, let's say, secure. Okay.
Yeah, more complex and
Yes.
specific to your particular network. Yeah, Ray also asks, is the password system specific?
Right now it is not, but it could change, right? So we decided right now to give a unique password for any systems, but we'll see later if that is changed.
Okay, very good. Okay, and then there are also two a question sort of came up is with the support. With the support plan, the paid subscription, can the customers use any one of the support offices, or are they restricted to their own time zone, or how does that work?
Oh no, of course not. They can access all of the support teams. So we have the email support@telcobridges.com reaches all my support team. We have a 24/7 support number, again, that reaches any one of my support team. You can access directly. You can access us with a Skype. So if you have a Skype profile ID, you can send that to us. We add it, and you can chat or call us on Skype, or so we're very flexible on that.
Great, good. Okay, and then maybe a question about, so when new features or updates happen, what's the process to get a new version of the software? How is that going to work?
Okay, so the best is to be on our forums.freesbc.com. In there, you have all the new versions that come out with all the new features. So you can keep up to date with what we're doing. We're implementing a lot of new features in the FreeSBC, and you can see it there. You can get the link in there to download the new software, and it's a very simple process. You get this new software, you go on the FreeSBC, and you say upload this version, and then you activate the new version when you're ready.
I see. Okay. Well, here's another question. Maybe I don't exactly know what this means, but maybe you can get it. Available any installation to Zen?
Zen, yeah, Zen has been asked a lot. It's another virtualization engine. We support right now VMware and then OpenStack and KVM, but Zen is another one, right? It has been asked a lot. So as more people ask for these features, here we get together and we do a roadmap according to what the customers are looking for. Zen, I know, has been asked a lot, so it could be the priority could be raised for sure. So keep asking for those features, and we'll know what you are interested in using and trying.
And it's a great kind of request to post in the forums too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
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 That's what we're looking for.
Great. Okay. Well, good. Well, that brings us to the end of the Q&A. So we'll start wrapping things up here. Luke, I obviously appreciate your continued support and the how-to sessions here. We got much more to go, and look
Yes.
forward to working with you on that. And
Thank you.
and doing some more live demos. And also, too, wanted to thank our audience for spending some time with us today. As I noted in the opening housekeeping, you'll receive an email from me later today or tomorrow morning with links to the slides and a recording of today's event. Please do share this content and also to that video of the full demonstration with others in your network that you might find useful. And that's it from here. Wishing you all a good day and hope you have a nice, safe day.